Bueller?
He's sick. My best friend's sister's boyfriend's brother's girlfriend heard from this guy who knows this kid is going with the girl who saw Ferris pass out at 31 Flavors last night. I guess it's pretty serious.
Thank you, Simone.
No problem whatsoever.
Bueller?
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. It's time to save another character, in this case, team. We had a request. Somebody asked, can you guys save the Fantastic Four from Dan Slott and Marvel Comics? Now, that's a tough egg to crack, but my good friend, comic book writer, award-winning editor Joe Corallo and myself are going to give it a shot. How you doing, Joe?
I'm all right, Wes. How are you?
I'm doing great. We've been talking about the Fantastic Four. We've done some retrospectives. It feels like anytime we get one of these big Marvel storylines in the 70s or 80s, it always seems to come back to the Fantastic Four. Whatever it is that we're exploring originated there, but it doesn't feel like the Fantastic Four have been all that important in terms of Marvel Comics for a very long time. And I don't know. It feels like they should be at least as important as the Avengers. But there's
for sure they should be. And to clarify at the beginning, a little disclaimer for everyone at the beginning of this video: if you are currently enjoying what is going on in the Fantastic Four, if this is your favorite iteration of the Fantastic Four, that is great. We're thrilled that you are enjoying comics. We're not asking anyone to get removed from a book. We are just having fun talking about what we might do with the Fantastic Four. So if you're really loving this, that's great. This is not the worst iteration of the Fantastic Four I've ever read. I am behind, but it's not the worst by a mile. There have been some really wonky takes over the years, but to Wes's point, the Fantastic Four, like a lot of comics at this point, feels stale, and we want to spice it up a bit.
Yeah, throw a little some pepper flakes on there and get some heat going.
Yeah,
on Fantastic Four. I like team books, but I personally really like family books.
Yes.
A nice close-knit family. Wes, you say the Batman family is too big. It is too big because there's like 40 characters. But if it was Batman and Robin and Alfred and maybe Nightwing, that would be a great book because there would be, 4 members. That's like the secret number, 4 or 5 if you want to do a family book. And I really do like the character dynamics. Specifically, I like the play between Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm. Mm-hmm. I specifically like the play between Reed Richards and Ben Grimm. Ben Grimm is really at the heart of the Fantastic Four whenever I read him. It's like the connective tissue that keeps the whole family together.
Yeah, and for a while that connective tissue was also Jack Kirby. I'm pretty sure that Jack had over 100 issues straight on that book. No fill-ins.
That's amazing.
Like that's unheard of in a lot of places. It doesn't get talked about as much. That I don't think any other book that Marvel was doing has that kind of record. And Stan was on it that whole time as well. Stan stuck around a little longer than Jack, but yeah, that's part of why it all worked and was able to be the foundation is that consistency.
Absolutely. And then, there's so many things that you can explore with Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four. A lot of it has to do with the cosmos and, leaving Earth and finding out the threats that are out there that they're eventually going to have to confront when they get to Earth. And I don't know, is the cosmos stuff, did it almost overtake even the family storytelling? I know there for a while, I think they just told everyone they were gone and went to space and hid.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Jack loves drawing that, like, crazy out there stuff, hence New Gods and Eternals and whatnot. I think that stuff still works because you saw him build a big family dynamic into the Inhumans. And that worked, I think, well, especially in the pages of Fantastic Four. It's all about the character interactions, and they can be having that family dynamic anywhere in the negative zone, in New York, on the moon, as long as there's some heart to the team, it can work anywhere.
So obviously there have been a couple of additions along the way. I think of the two children, Franklin and my goodness, I'm forgetting Valeric. It's Val, right?
Yeah.
They have been around for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Franklin's probably a little too overpowered, but I guess Dan Slott decided to take care of that, and he's no longer a mutant. So I guess he wished himself into being a mutant because he can change realities, a reality warper. And whereas Val is not powered, but she does have her father's intellects. I think the kids are probably a good addition to the team to kind of flesh out and add some more types of conflict and everything you can handle.
Sure.
But because they made Franklin Richards so powerful, it feels like they have to reset him every so many years because he's almost like a god.
Yeah.
And they have to kind of make him a baby again.
Yeah. He's never the same age. He ages. His existence throws a wrench in any attempts for continuity. Yeah, in the whole Marvel universe, he'll be the same age as everyone's aging, or he'll age a little bit and everyone's the same age. Like it throws everything off. Just like how Spider-Man, Peter Parker was in high school for like 2 years and then college for like 12 years.
Well, he went back to high school eventually.
Yeah, and then eventually. but yeah, it's that kind of stuff. But yeah, Franklin's interesting. And Byrne tried to explain it. It had the whole thing where he like aged him up and then he had to get aged back down because, yeah, he's just too powerful. At a certain age, he becomes way too powerful, so they have to keep him from getting to that age. All that nonsense.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of times they're trying to kind of deal with the problem of Franklin Richards that he presents within even the entire Marvel universe. And I don't know. Do they get away from the family dynamics too much? Dude, that always what it feels like to me. And it also doesn't feel like Fantastic Four have been like central to the core of Marvel Comics for a couple decades at least now.
Again, and we've touched on this before. I mean, everything from the Inhumans, Black Panther, the Watcher, Galactus,
Pre-Skrull War.
Yeah, the Skrulls and
Silver
all that,
Surfer.
and like issue 2. Yeah, no, the Red Ghost, just all that stuff. Yeah, obviously the Silver Surfer was a massively successful character. It's odd thinking about how the Silver Surfer had like his own Nintendo game and cartoon in the 90s and all that craziness. Massively successful comic that could never work in a movie for some reason, even though it seems like it shouldn't be that hard because The Incredibles was perfect.
In many ways, The Incredibles is the best film adaptation we've had of the Fantastic Four.
Yes, it's very weird, but yeah, and Incredibles 2 was fine, but. But that first one, oh my God, when they're at the dinner table and the dad's just like, he should be great, like that like, love it. But yeah, the book kind of loses itself in a while. The 70s, I think, is where after Stan and Jack leave, there's a little bit of a period where it's like kind of going all over the place. Ben at one point is in like a Thing suit because he got turned back into Ben for a longer period of time. Then I feel like Marv Wolfman elevated the book again. And then, John Byrne came in. I think Marv did a lot of good and interesting things. I loved the build up to Fantastic Four 200 with the overthrow of Doom and, displacing him and Latveria and all that. Like that stuff's great. After Byrne leaves, it's pure chaos for a while.
There is one short run by Claremont that's actually pretty solid.
Sure, that's Reborn, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
yeah.
It was
Born Again, yeah.
Pretty brief, unfortunately.
Yeah, Hero's Return, or that whole thing. It's just sorry, I'm like, bleh. But yeah, it was like Claremont, Lobdell. Didn't Salvador LaRocca and Carlos Pacheco are around there too, I think, doing art.
Salvador LaRocca for certain.
Yeah. Then Carlos Pacheco was either towards the end of that or right after that. But yeah, he did stuff around then. I mean, people liked Mark Waid and Michael Rango's run. Michael Rango is someone who we lost way too soon. But yeah,
shockingly enough, with Mark Waid, he kind of wrote the last pretty decent Fantastic Four story that I've read. It was with, I think it was Neil Adams on art, which I'll tell you right now was fantastic. I can't remember the name of the miniseries, but it wasn't the greatest story of the world. But it was like, oh, this feels like the Fantastic Four. Got some fun family dynamics. They're going off into space. They're discovering an enormous threat to the world, and what are they going to do about it?
Yeah,
and Neil Adams on art. You can't go wrong there. His thing was frightening.
Oh yeah, no, you had that, and then you had some other things that kind of did weird stuff. The Fantastic Four, Civil War did weird stuff where like Reed Richards became more of like a supervillain, and you had like Sue basically like abandoned her kids to get away from them. Like weird stuff happened in Civil War with the Fantastic Four. That's
one of the things they seem to do. There's like three characters, at least three stalwart Marvel characters that are super geniuses. I won't throw Peter Parker in there, even though I will admit he's somewhat in that category. But Reed Richards, Hank Pym, and Tony Stark, because they're so smart and they're like these super geniuses, eventually, for some reason, Marvel always kind of is like tempted to or accidentally turns them into these supervillains.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think people think they're too clever. Reed works when he has heart and when he's a decent person trying to do the right thing. When Sue's there
kind of checking him, and then he recognizes that she's right. I am going too far with this. I do have to rein things in.
But like too many writers and editors think they're way too clever and get into stuff with characters like Reed, characters like Professor X, where they're like, wouldn't it be cool if they were so smart they turned into the villain of their own stories? I'm so over that. I'm not into it anymore. It's like, it's cool when you're like 14, when you see kind of something like that for like the first time, where it's like, I can't believe this guy I trusted is a bad guy. But then like as you get older, you're like, this is the dumbest thing that we keep going back to this well of Reed's doing something sinister, or Reed is doing something that's terrible, but maybe he thinks he's good, and that's not stuff that Dan Slott's really doing. So I appreciate that. Like again, props to Dan for kind of taking the Fantastic Four away from that. I just think that the problem is, and this isn't a Dan Slott problem, this isn't a Fantastic Four problem, this is an overall Marvel problem, where it feels like we are currently listening to a greatest hits album of not just the Fantastic Four, but a lot of titles.
Captain America was very much that with Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yeah.
It was like we've kind of seen these stories progress a lot of times. Doc has said specifically that what Jonathan Hickman's doing in X-Men, he's just recycling a couple of story arcs that Claremont did back in the day and repurposing them.
For sure.
So that's what we're getting in Hollywood too, though. There's nobody that can make original content. It's all about reboots because you want to have that name cachet of stuff that already made money.
Yeah, because over the years with the Fantastic Four, they'll do certain things to spice it up or change the dynamic. Obviously, people think of like She-Hulk joining the team when Thing was gone for a bit. There's been a bunch of times where it's been new members, where it's like, Black Panther and Storm are on the team, or
I think Spidey was on there for a minute.
Spidey, I think that was, again, it's been so long since I've touched some of this stuff, but like it was like, Spidey on the team. When Slott was on Spider-Man and the Future Foundation, so when they came back as the Future Foundation, so the Fantastic Four in those like black and white suits, Spidey was on the team. But I think there was also a time, I want to say in the 90s, where it was like Spider-Man, Wolverine, Doctor Strange, and Ghost Rider or something briefly as like...
It's really weird.
The Fantastic Four. But yeah, I'm trying to think. It's some combination like that. But no, there's been a lot of weird stuff to try to spice it up. And then you'll get times where there are changes and people really like them, and then there's still too much pushback, and Marvel reacts to like, even though we're selling better or there is interest, there's too many people want the old Fantastic Four, so we got to go back. And the Fantastic Four suffers from that the same way that DC suffers from one of the big problems from like Jeff Johns, for example, of we got to go back to Barry Allen. We got to go back to Hal Jordan after we made these changes. And it's created this like level of cynicism with comic fans of like, hope you enjoy the change while it lasts. Maybe you get a year or two, and then it's right back to same old stuff. And that's helped perpetuate a book like Fantastic Four to feeling old and tired of an idea when I don't think it necessarily has to be.
Well, definitely not. I mean, we saw, at the beginning stages of, what was that? New Age of Heroes at DC. I mean, they had a really good Fantastic Four book written by Jeff Lemire. Shockingly, a really good writer. I love Jeff. Mm-hmm. It was pretty cool. They threw them in, they had like this weird blockchain or this chain that you couldn't say. They had to be within like a half a kilometer of each other at all times or something like that until they could figure it out.
Yeah.
And it made them, kind of have to interact with each other, going into other dimensions and fighting and stuff. It's like, hey, this is a great team book. A little bit of arguing, a lot of heart in the book. Mm-hmm. So it can definitely be done. It's the same thing with like, you can't make good Superman comics nowadays. Mm-hmm. He doesn't fit the times. It's like, are you crazy? Did you read the Peter Tomasi stuff? Even the Dan Jurgens stuff on Action Comics? You do a lot of good stuff with Superman. You just have to realize what his place is in the universe and exploit that.
Absolutely, you can make a lot of these characters could be really great, but people would rather just go like, it's too old and tired, and everything's been done, and it's not the case.
Well, that does feel like a lot of Marvel. Everything's been done. Let's redo it again. So there was a time, and a lot of people blame this on the fact that Marvel sold the rights to Fantastic Four out to Fox. Mm-hmm. Obviously, X-Men were out there, where Marvel Comics deprioritized the X-Men comics and the Fantastic Four comics for quite a few years. And in fact, I don't think there was even a Fantastic Four comic for quite a long time. It just feels weird that they would even, go more than a couple of months without a Fantastic Four title being released. Do you think that ended up hurting the Fantastic Four's place in the Marvel Comics universe? It felt like people wanted to come back, but when they came back, there was nowhere for them to be.
I think, yes and no, because I think the damage was seen much more clearly with the X titles. The X titles were a juggernaut, for no pun intended, for a long time, well past like Fantastic Four. Hasn't really recovered since Byrne recovered it to a certain extent. I mean, people like the Hickman run, the Mark Waid run, but overall, it never hit those like highs. Like, even when you had Hickman doing Fantastic Four, the feeling wasn't, this is going to be the number one seller every month. The feeling was like, oh my God, have you heard? This is like, it was more like an underground thing of like, oh my God, you hear like what Hickman's doing with like Fantastic Four?
Fantastic Four back, nobody knows it.
Like it was, and I don't have the sales in front of me or anything, but I can't imagine that Hickman's Fantastic Four topped the sales every month. Or even beat, some other heavy hitter titles like it. So it changed where it was, and it hasn't really come back to those heights. But I think there are things you can do to improve it, to bring it back to get people back on track with the title. And again, while Slott is doing a fine job, it does feel like he's checking off some boxes of things that like people might have thought happened years ago already. Like, the Thing is finally getting married to Alicia Masters. Like, oh, okay. Like,
I've been talking about that for like 50 years, 60 years.
Like that kind of stuff where it's like, and that's great that like that's a great way to take a book. You just taking it over and looking at it and being like, what the hell? This stuff hasn't happened yet?
Dr. Doom's getting married now. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so I do appreciate that, but I do think there are other things you could do with the title to like, elevate it to something that's more talked about.
So there have been some fantastic villains that have been mined out of the Fantastic Four. You think of Galactus. Doesn't feel like Marvel has any plans really to do anything with Galactus. We did see him in Thor recently when Donny Cates run, where it turns out he was the actual herald for the Black Winter, whatever that entity was. I thought it was a weird reimagining of where Galactus came from, but doesn't feel like he's coming back. But then you have Dr. Doom, who you just mentioned. Have they made Dr. Doom a little bit too likable? It feels like he's an isolationist that just wants to run his country of Latveria. And the only time he gets involved is when they make him get involved.
Yeah, like Dr. Doom has kind of become too close to someone like Magneto.
Yes, he's a fence jumper. He's on the good side fence or the bad guy. He just straddles it now.
Yeah, it is too bad. He's such a great villain. He was always somewhat sympathetic. I think even going back to like Fantastic Four Annual #2, where they go into like his origin, that he had a rough childhood.
He's no Obadiah Stane. Let's put it that way.
He's no Obadiah Stane, absolutely. But they tried to do things where they want it to be a little complicated, and I mean Marv Wolfman and John Byrne certainly touch on some of that stuff where you'd have like the Fantastic Four come to Latveria. I think pretty early on in Byrne's run. And see that everyone there like loves Doom, and I mean that's a bit of a parallel to like Fidel Castro at the time and stuff like that, and that's an interesting thing to kind of wrap your head around, of like that this is like bad for so many people, but there are these people who this is what they want, and like it is interesting, and it is an interesting topic to touch on. But I think sometimes when people build on that, or maybe lose some of the original notions of why they were doing that in the first place, you can kind of get off the rails pretty quick and just get to a point where you just have a maniacal, murderous villain become a fun and a lovable.
Yeah, he's got great one-liners, one-liners, and you're kind of rooting for him. Like, I was reading Fantastic Four versus X-Men, I think that's when it was, where they end up in Latveria, and I'm like, they shouldn't be there. He's already told them they're not supposed to be there, and he gave them a special invitation just to make it right or whatever. And so too many times, Reed Richards falls into the villain category when he shouldn't do that, because he's got Ben Grimm, he's got Sue Storm, he's got his children. So those are his anchors to kind of keep him from going over the edge, with Psycho.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And you got Doom, who has he's got the love and adoration of his citizens, something that shouldn't anchor him from ever not going over the line. And he's kind of like, he's more on the good side and Reed's on the bad side. It's like you confused the two characters here, and you messed up the dynamics between them. There's supposed to be the origins are interconnected for a reason.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You get that. You get, again, you get the whole bit with Reed doing these things and pulling strings and being part of an Illuminati, and just making it into this big mess that's not
Don't
necessary.
even get me to the Illuminati. I'm like, holy crap, all the most powerful heroes in Marvel Comics are killing billions upon trillions of people that they've never met.
Yeah.
Man, these are the good guys. Okay.
Yeah, it's something. But yeah, it's
Hickman makes everything complicated, right?
Yes, it gets very complicated, but it doesn't have to be.
No. So recently, there's been a couple of Fantastic Four titles I enjoyed. I talked about the Mark Waid, Neil Adams one that I thought was very well done. Not the most exciting story of ever, but it was good. Fantastic Four is well illustrated. And Dan Slott is definitely well illustrated. He's got RB Silva going with him right now. And then before that, there was that Chip Zdarsky Marvel 2-in-1, where it's the Ben Grimm, Johnny Storm looking for Reed and Sue, who have lied to them and are secretly alive in space, but they wanted to go hide themselves because they didn't like the responsibilities that they had on Earth.
Yeah,
which I thought was really, like, you're talking like evil stuff. They made their brother think that they were dead.
Yes.
But it was a good story about those two. And then we had that Fantastic Four versus X-Men, another Chip Zdarsky story. I thought it was really well executed. Like the dynamics of Sue Storm, sticking up for her family and stuff like that. Not like Civil War where she abandons them and leaves their children with their psychotic father kind of thing. So there are things to work with, but it all comes back down to the family.
Yeah, Zdarsky's 2-in-1 was probably the highlight for me in recent years. I was one of the few that was reading the was it James Robinson run right before the book ended. It was Leonard Kirk, I think was the artist on that, and there were the backups from like Dean Haspiel and a bunch of them to be like more Silver Agey stuff. Like, it wasn't great. I think people hated on it a little too much, but no, it wasn't great, and I'm pretty sure it was James who was like the last guy to have a run on the book before it ended for years, and then Slott had it. So
you got a big hiatus in there. I don't know. Dan Slott had wonderful sales on Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. No denying that. Almost anybody's going to have wonderful sales on Amazing Spider-Man. That's like one of those books that has built-in a large enough built-in fan base that you're always going to be kind of up near the top. They probably screwed the pooch when they gave him the relaunch of Tony Stark Iron Man, along with Fantastic Four. It does not feel like he can handle more than one title at a time. And I have heard what you've said, that once he lost the Iron Man weight, that the Fantastic Four books have definitely picked up as far as the caliber of writing that we're receiving right now.
Yeah.
But if we're going to save the family, we got to do something.
Sure.
I don't know exactly what I would do, but I would want to, if the Fantastic Four are ever to return to their former glory, and I don't even think that's possible at this point, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've been moved to the periphery of importance of Marvel Comics, but they need to be moved kind of back to the core. They need to be, I don't know, important again. Reed Richards needs to have a purpose other than just being the other Tony Stark. That's kind of like, you don't see Hank Pym anymore because there's no need for him, because there's too many overlapping characters. They need to do something with Reed Richards, whether it be re-exploiting the negative zone, being the protector of the cosmos with his wife and best friends at his side, or something like that. I also, Ben Grimm needs to be the heart of the book. He needs to be a central focus just in Marvel Comics, period. And when there's a big event, the Fantastic Four should be right up there with the Avengers. It always feels like they're in a laboratory where everyone else is out fighting, as if they're, well, I guess Ben Grimm's out there. We saw him got taken over in Kingdom Black. But they need to be on the front lines fighting with all the other big heroes, and it can't just be Ben.
Yeah.
Now, that would be like, I don't know exactly how you do it, but you just have to integrate them in and make them an important part of Marvel Comics again. You're an actual professional writer. I'm sure that you probably have a dream Fantastic Four story that you've been wanting to tell your whole life, perhaps.
Yeah, I had a few ideas on it. I think one thing I would love to see is just like multiple years, like 3 years of a like Lost in Space Fantastic Four type story where maybe it's the family, maybe it's the family and add in Alicia Masters or Crystal or some other characters, and they get lost in like the negative zone. And then it's their journey to get back. And it's all about fighting some classic villains. Maybe you throw in Annihilus, you throw in a few other classic villains that somehow make it in. You introduce new villains. You throw in stuff like Ego the Living Planet and Galactus and some strange things like that. They get out of the negative zone, but then they're in another part of the known reality that's way too far from Earth, and they have to weave themselves in and out of the negative zone to other realities, just trying to get back. I guess it would be similar, not just to like Lost in Space, but there's a lot of stuff like that. Sliders,
Black Science from Rick Remender has something similar, where they're kind of hopping through realities trying to get back to the original one.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But if you do that with the Fantastic Four and you bring it back to it being about the family, being about trusting each other, learning about each other in dire situations and things like that, I think you could really do something interesting and engaging with a book like the Fantastic Four in that setting. And it would help to keep them kind of away from a lot of the other stuff to make them stand out. Like if you put them in a situation like that, you don't have to compare them to the Avengers and the X-Men and characters like that, because that's one of the big problems is, like you were bringing up with King in Black, it's like, yeah, things there, but like, when you have like the Fantastic Four and then like the Avengers show up, I'm going to be waving over the Avengers over the Fantastic Four like every single time. Like, oh, Thor, Iron Man, like
Cap. To further the line.
Yeah, like you guys here, like Fantastic Four, that's great. I really appreciate it. But like you guys, like Thor alone, it's just like, please come help. It's.
What's cool is with what you're talking about, whatever caused them to go in there could be a science experiment. With one of those great machines that maybe Jack Kirby drew back in the day. Let's reuse some of these things because they're so amazing. And maybe Tony Stark or Hank Pym realize something happened. They're trying to bring him back. Yeah. But they don't have you can weave it into the Avengers so it's still in the conscious of Marvel readers. Mm-hmm. And when they finally make their return, whatever hopefully a big important event's happening, and Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four are the ones that saved the day. Yeah. They couldn't have done it without him, and you could get them like a signature win and have a nice big place when they finally return to the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of little things you could do. Maybe they run into the Guardians of the Galaxy at some point. Perfect. Or like the ones from like the year 3000, like really
Yondu.
Yeah, like have them run into that. Have them, maybe Tony finds him, but he's got like,
but not the Council of Reeds.
No.
I don't like that.
No, that's awful. But something like that, something where like maybe Tony finds him and has like a device that can get him there, but it's only going to let him be there for like an hour. So you have him for like a couple of issues, and then before he's able to figure out the way to attach the device to their ship to get them all back, he gets sucked back. Like there's so many like little things like that you could do to make it interesting. And running into other Heralds of Galactus, maybe they run into Firelord, maybe they run into all sorts of characters, Nova Corps, like there's Thanos and all them. Like there's so many other things out there. You could bring back like the Dark Gods from like Jurgen's Thor run, or so many interesting things and potentials you could do there. In addition to also just making new characters and new villains for them to fight. But
Joe, would you take this opportunity to potentially power down Franklin Richards and maybe get the fact that he could bend all of our reality out of existence if he gets old enough and powerful enough.
Yeah, I mean, there should be ways to either do it or just not like even address some of how way overpowered he is. Like, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, it's all right if you keep him at this age where like he can't really do anything, but then you also don't use him as like Deus Ex Machina, which is, you know, something that it's way too easy to lean on, which was a big problem with stuff like Doctor Who, where after a while it was like, oh, the sonic screwdriver just does anything. So Franklin Richards is kind of like just like the sonic screwdriver of just like, they're in this impossible situation. Franklin sneezed and it threw that villain into another reality, and we're good. Like
that would be. He's hitting puberty, folks. His voice is cracking, and he's fragmenting reality. He can't control it.
Yeah, but no, the Fantastic Four is great. There's a lot of fun you can do with it. There's still fun and positive energy going on in there. Dan's doing fine. It's just, it would be nice to see the Fantastic Four like hit these sort of marks, and it's like you can do these sort of fun family, Lost in Space kind of adventures without getting too Hickman-y about it. Because I love Hickman. I love a lot of the cerebral stuff, but like I think a lot of people agree that one of his weak points is like real like human
Character
warmth
progression.
and like it's like that these characters, everyone, like a lot of people end up coming off more cold and calculating than they need to be, I think, in some of his work. Which works great in some things.
Well, probably the problem with the Illuminati is like they're killing a lot of people here.
Yes,
a lot of people dying here, and it's just like, well, we've got to make a decision.
Yeah,
feels like this should weigh on your minds here.
Yeah, but I think doing something like that, and I know the Fantastic Four have like done stuff where it was like, oh, we're lost in the negative zone. How do we get out? But I'm talking with something like this, like just years. Give us years of it. Kind of like what Bill Loebs wanted to do with Wonder Woman. Have her just in space for years. Like 3 years, she's like space pirate. And that would have been amazing.
And the next time you do an actual Fantastic Four event, like they tried to do with, what was that? The
Empire-ish?
Empire. Nothing led into that. There's just one day Empire was here, and it's Fantastic Four Avengers Empire. And you're like, can we lead up to this stuff in the book? Like, you can at least, hint at it 12 issues earlier, hint at it even harder 6 issues earlier, and the last two, like, lead into whatever's happening. Because if it just comes out of nowhere, it's like, what, they just decided they needed an event? Like, does it feel like they worked towards it?
Might have.
It's Marvel. That's across the board, really. A lot of things.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. It's
few things feel like what is it, King in Black, where it's like, oh, okay, he's been working for this for like 2.5 years.
Yeah, no, that's it's unfortunately rare, but it's nice to see when it happens.
But I do love Fantastic Four. I like going back and reading the Stan and Jack stuff. The John Byrne run is legendary. There have been some other great runs sprinkled in there, but that's literally like that is the beginning of Marvel Comics as we know. And I wish they would prioritize the book, get it out there, do something really fun, and get people back on board. This is not, like you mentioned, this is not like the worst run of Fantastic Four. We're not in the X-Men red, blue, and gold era right now on Fantastic Four.
Oh, no, not.
It's not even close. Or even the Dan Slott, Tony Stark Iron Man era. Like, that was a bad take on the character. This is fine, but it's never going to take off and get big unless they do something really cool and fun with it. And I hope that does happen because it's a wonderful team. I love family books. They're important.
Yeah, I do too. It's good stuff.
Do you have anything else to say, Joe, about saving the Fantastic Four? Or have you said it all?
Yeah, no, I think that's a lot. If people haven't read the Stan and Jack stuff, please go back and read it. It's several years of really good comics there. Marv Wolfman did great stuff in addition to John Byrne. Tom DeFalco did some great stuff on the title. Like Walt Simonson, Steve Englehart. There's good stuff there. Check it out.